Morning all. So let's do a little bit of a news of the week on this Sunday morning. And these last couple of days, there was definitely not as much news as we got back on Wednesday, where I think I broke the record in terms of the most news that I put on the board, and that, I was literally just got enough space in terms of talk about all kinds of news that happened back on Wednesday and in the last couple of days. And I think the reason why there isn't as much news is because I decided to, instead of just kind of individually talk about the most notable player that had their playoff option decline, I decided to list them into just one news point so that I don't have to kind of talk about it individually, and I don't have to kind of like put it individually on the board. Well, I'll still kind of talk about it individually because there are a couple of notable players that got their playoff option declined that I was kind of surprised that their team decided to not renew their contract. But here's the list of players that got their player option declined. We got Alexander Katai, Nico Gaitan, Victor Rodriguez, Roman Torres, Sepp Sanovic, Benny Feilhaber, Beitashour, Miguel Ibarra, Diego Polenta, Bradley Wright Phillips, Robles, Miram, and Sasha Kleshin all had their player option decline. And some of these guys, I know for a fact that they're probably going to sign by another team and probably picked up in free agency. There is no doubt that I won't be surprised if Katai or Gaitan might be picked up by another team, considering, they were one of the most important piece on the attacking end. And I'm kind of really surprised the fact that they decided to let them go, even though they were crucial in terms of the attacking end. Victor Rodriguez, I think he might be the first player to ever win MLS MVP and still get his contract option decline. I mean, that is just kind of insane, but I guess maybe the reason why they decided, or the Sounders decided to let him go, is because he hasn't really spent a lot of time playing with the Sounders, mostly due to injury, and that he's tend to be a little bit more injury prone. So, I guess maybe another team will try to pick him up. I mean, this is a guy that, if he's healthy, he is one of the most impact player in the league. So I won't be surprised he would be signed with another team. Roman Torres, obviously, we knew that this was going to be his final year, so this was not a big surprise. Sepp Sanovic and Benny Feilhaber, both of these guys are part of the old regime of SKC, and since SKC is moving on to a new direction, they have to move on from some of those players from the old regime, which are these two players. Beitashour, this is another kind of a surprising one. I guess LAFC, they're kind of moving on in terms of the fact that Beitashour, since he's getting older and that he started to kind of fell out of favor in Bob Bradley's team. That's why they decided to let him go. That goes the same with Miguel Ibarra. I know he's been with the club for a long time, and he's one of the last Minnesota player to be with the club ever since they were in the NASL day. But this season, he really fell out of favor and didn't really play a lot of game. And you knew that when that happens, that is probably the end of his time with Minnesota. And it's definitely sad because of the fact that he's been with the club for a long time and that he's one of the last player on this Minnesota team that is part of the NASL day, and even go as far as the inaugural year that they were in. So, he of course will unfortunately have to leave. Diego Polenta, I'm pretty sure a lot of Galaxy fans are happy that he's leaving, because he was definitely not the answer to their backline crisis that they've been having a couple of years ago. Bradley Wright Phillips and Luis Robles, I can pretty much make the same reason of why they got their contract option declined to the one with Sepp Sanovic and Benny Feilhaber. The Red Bulls, I think they're moving on to a new direction now and trying to get some new generation of academy player down the pipeline, and that these two guys, they were kind of part of the old core that the Red Bulls had, and I feel like this was the year that potentially they have to move on. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that they decided not to renew Robles a little bit, because he still performed at the highest standard for the past couple of years, and that for some reason they decided that this was finally the year to go. And I really felt bad for Robles, who, when he found out that he got his contract option declined, he was really in tears because he's been with this club his entire year, and it's always hard when you realize that the club that you've been throughout your entire career and that you're so loyal to this club that it's almost like another family member for you. Unfortunately, this is they of course tell you that you're going to be no longer on the team because we declined your contract option. So that's pretty tough for Luis Robles, but I have no doubt that he's going to be picked up in free agency, and I'm pretty sure every club that needs a goalkeeper are really picking up the phone and calling Luis Robles' agent and saying that, hey, we're going to sign you in, even though we know that you probably have a couple of years left. We desperately need a goalkeeper, and you are a perfect fit into our team. And then the other guys that's not going to have their contract renew is just Meram and Sasha Kleshin. Meram, he did very well with Atlanta, but you kind of knew that when Meram went to Atlanta, it was just a short rental, and that eventually he's not going to have his contract renewed because he's getting to a point where he's getting old, and that I don't think Atlanta is going to lose a lot if they're decided to not resign him, and that they can of course free up some salary cap space. And Sasha Kleshin, he is a guy that I think were one of those guys that was part of the fail kind of core that Orlando City tried to build a couple of years ago, and now they're basically just getting rid of that part and restart all over again. So that is the players option that was declined, and kind of individually talk about why they got declined. But moving on, Claudio Reyna announced as the new sporting director of Austin FC. So on Wednesday, I talked about there was a rumor that this, of course, would come true. It did come true a couple of days ago, and this is definitely a big loss for NYCFC because he is a guy that built that NYCFC team to be a team that, when they came into the expansion year, they barely missed the playoffs, to competing for Supporter Shield almost every single season besides the expansion year. And, I guess maybe Claudio Reyna, he felt like he wants to move on and want to kind of do a new challenge and trying to help another team that just came into the league and start from scratch so that they can, of course, build them into kind of similar to NYCFC. So, that's why he decided to go to Austin, and we'll see how he does in Austin FC and whether or not if he can repeat that same success that he had with his former team. Another former team or former manager of NYCFC, Domai Turan, has reported to contracted by several MLS teams. Now this one, I'm kind of surprised because I thought Domai Turan, once he decided to leave NYCFC, I thought he was going to leave for good and that he's not coming back to MLS. And besides, I think a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned how Domai Turan, one of the reasons why he doesn't like to stay at NYCFC is the fact that he doesn't like the fact that the team is restricting him in terms of the spending, but he also doesn't like the salary cap of MLS and the travel that his team has to endure almost on a weekly basis. So that's why he decided to kind of leave. But it seemed like now he's been contacted by several MLS teams, and that what he says about the fact that he doesn't like MLS because of the salary cap and the travel burdens, I don't think he's going to come back with another MLS team because that wouldn't make sense. The fact that you say all these things that you don't like about MLS and you decided to take over another MLS team, that you're going to have that same burdens that you had when you were coaching with NYCFC. Inter Miami co-owner Jorge Mas says Mauricio Pochettino will not be their next manager, and I know a lot of people, when they found out that Tottenham, of course, fired Mauricio Pochettino, that this might be an opportunity for Inter Miami to scoop in to try to get their manager. And after all, this team has been kind of in some way hyped heading into the expansion year and tried to be like the LAFC and Atlanta of expansion year. But, I feel like, I don't think Mauricio Pochettino is coming to MLS. I mean, I feel like he's just too good of a coach to come to MLS, and that I think most likely he's going to either end up in one of the top European team or going to end up with a team that is going to be similar quality of Tottenham. So yeah, I just think that he probably will not come to MLS just because he of course just got far off of a job coaching one of the best team in the Premier League. But you know, in a couple of years, I might maybe that of course will be the case if he stay in Europe and coach those big teams, and he doesn't do a lot. He didn't had a lot of success in terms of coaching those teams. Maybe he could come to MLS and meet to Inter Miami, but I just feel like he's just too big for MLS, and that Jorge Mas kind of realized that it's it's going to be very hard for them to pursue Pochettino, and that it's probably safer to let that rumor die and think about getting another their head coach somewhere in South America, which, by the way, I have heard rumors that they are linking with the manager at River Plate, and that in a couple of days, most likely they are going to announce that he is going to be the new manager of Inter Miami. Montreal Impact picked up Piatti option and finalized permanent deal on Sofia Taidia. So after pretty much a couple of months of this Piatti saga and talk about whether or not if he's going to stay with Montreal or he's going to potentially be leaving the club, we found out that Montreal decided to pick up his option, and they also finalized the deal on Sofia Taidia, who was basically their most lethal goal scorer, and he didn't even hit the 10 goal mark this season. And if you're a team that is relying on a lethal goal scorer that didn't even score more than 10 goals, yeah, there's something tells me that you need to find a striker, and you need to have some more attacking piece on your attack, because Montreal last year, I know throughout the year they did not have their most important creative player in Piatti, but at the same time they just couldn't do anything in most of the game, and that they just couldn't score in most of the game. So it's great news that they get one of their creative attacking midfielder and one their legend of their club back for another year, but something tells me they can't just rely on Piatti as the only player that will create for them in terms of the attacking piece, and they need another option in case if next season he's going to suffer the same kind of problem he had this year, which is injury problem. Vito Manone loan ended, but Minnesota looked to make his deal on a permanent, and this is definitely going to be hard for Minnesota to try to get Vito Manone loan on a permanent deal, because I have a feeling whoever loan Vito Manone to Minnesota, which I believe is Reading, is going to be asking a lot of money to try to get him, because after he won MLS Goalkeeper of the Year, that price tag definitely skyrocketed. And for Minnesota, this is definitely a difficult decision, because you want to have Vito Manone back with this team because as I said, he was the Goalkeeper of the Year. He was no doubt one of, if not the best goalkeeper from last season, and one of the reason why Minnesota was so good last year. But you also don't want to just overpay him and try to do something that every team should not be able to do, and that it's kind of a cardinal sin in the DP rule, which is trying to make your goalkeeper as a designated player. I mean, just ask Colorado of how that actually work out when they try to make their goalkeeper as a designated player. So Minnesota is, as much as they want to pay heavy price for them, they gotta also know that the more the price is, the more likely this is going to be a DP contract, which is something you don't want to do when you're trying to get a goalkeeper even as good as Vito Manone. SKC is rumored to get Canadian striker Lucas Cavallini. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. SKC, they've been wanted to get a striker for a couple of years, and I have heard that they are really looking into him as the solution. From what I heard, he did okay with Puebla in the last couple of years, but it's interesting to see if this rumor, of course, would come true. And that anytime when you have a rumor that involves a Canadian player, you kind of think, why in the world is Toronto FC, Vancouver, or even Montreal trying to think about signing him? Because a lot of Canadian players usually go to these teams because that means that they don't have to they can of course occupy one of the domestic player spot. And it's interesting to see why those couple of teams that don't really think about getting him. And especially I've heard a lot of TFC fans said that if he comes to TFC, this will perfectly fit for him because he, once Josie Altidore could be struggling, or the fact that his age caught up to him, or if he has injury problem, this would be a perfect replacement for him in the striker position. So yeah, we'll see if SKC potentially would get him in these upcoming weeks. But moving on, Nashville decided that they are going to sign 4 players from the USL side. And I hate to say this, but what Nashville did is a very FC Cincinnati move. And I'm trying so hard to not think that this team is going to end up like what FC Cincinnati was when they came into their expansion year, because of the fact that, when FC Cincinnati came into the expansion year, they did this kind of thing, which is sign players from the USL side, get a couple of D-ments, and think that of course work out. Yeah, it did not work out whatsoever, and it seemed like Nashville was doing the same thing. Sign a couple of USL players, sign a couple of D-mits that are kind of mediocre, but they're still paying a high price for them, and they still don't really have a lot of attacking piece. And unless in this offseason they're not going to rumor to more attacking pieces that would really think that maybe this team is not going to be FC Cincinnati heading into expansion year. Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not the case. I hope Nashville will do as good as what FC Cincinnati did last year in their expansion year, but the signs are there in terms of them look like they're going to be once again a bottom feeder in their expansion year, just like what FC Cincinnati was throughout their expansion year. Mario Balotelli is once again rumored to come to MLS, and as much as I know this is probably the 4 millionth time that this has been rumored in the rumor mill, this one I can at least take some sense, knowing the fact that a couple of weeks ago there was an incident where Mario Balotelli was racially abused by some of the fans in a Serie A game, and it's clear that he is definitely not happy. And in fact, I think he even launched a ball into the fans, which the fans not only were not happy about it, but the player were absolutely angry at him for doing that. So because of that, I think he think about leaving Serie A. And what a better way to try to escape from racially abused kind of behavior in a league than come to MLS, where we don't usually get a lot of that. In fact, if we have any incident that is like that, usually teams get heavily fined for doing that. So yeah, we'll see if this rumor is once again gonna come true, or the fact that he's just gonna go to another league in Europe. We don't know. The Chicago Fire reviewed their new logo, and I'm not really gonna talk a lot about this because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have already kind of had their reaction, and there's definitely a lot of uproar and outrage in terms of the new logo because of the fact that it does not look good whatsoever. And I'm not gonna show it to you because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have already saw it, and if you haven't saw it, just go to either the Chicago Fire website or just go to MLSsoccer.com, where they have articles talking about the new logo. And I will say this, it's not as bad as what some people would say, that it should clearly be extinguished with water, but it's definitely not good. And whoever decided to design that probably is a person that lie in their resume in terms of getting a graphic designer as one of their degree, and they just made that kind of atrocity. So yeah, I do feel sorry for Fire fans, knowing the fact that there's just so much promise that's going on with the team moving back to Soldier Field and rebranding the team, and they get this. So yeah, well, I guess in this upcoming year, I won't be surprised if every single Chicago Fire game is going to have something that talks not just the way that they are playing, but the logo that they are wearing, because it's just so bad. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.